May 9th, 1945. Germany set Stunde Null, 0 hour. The country lies in ruins, the citizens are starving and countless children have been separated from their parents. The starvation isn't getting any better and the need for a warm home, work and many other basic things is growing stronger every day. But to understand...
Hi, I'm Anna.
Hello, and my name is Mika.
Well, where was I? Yes. Now, to get to understand how we got here, we need to jump back in time. Not to our 1, but to our -6. 6 years earlier. September 1st, 1939. Germany launched its first attack on another country. They used a strategy called Blitzkrieg. But what is a Blitzkrieg really? The word Blitzkrieg was first used in 1935. It describes a fast and powerful military strategy designed for short wars, especially for countries like Germany, which had limited resources. In simple terms, it was a surprise attack, meant to break the enemy's defenses quickly before they could organize a response. A German general named Heinz Guderian helped develop this idea further. He believed that the key to success was speed and coordination, using tanks, airplanes, and motorized infantry together to break through enemy lines. However, the roots of this thinking came earlier from Hans of Seeckt, who after World War I promoted a new kind of warfare, a war of movement. Interestingly, the German army, the Wehrmacht, never officially used the word Blitzkrieg. It was a term later used by journalists and historians. However, this strategy also had risks. If Blitzkrieg failed to bring a quick victory, the attacker could get stuck in a long and costly war. That is, for example, what happened to Germany in the Soviet Union, but we will come to that later. In the end, a Blitzkrieg can lead to a kind of Pyrrhic victory. A win that costs so much it feels like a loss. Okay, I think now you are well prepared and we can talk about the wars. Hey,
Let's
what are you
first
doing?
look at the background of the Second World War and thus also of the Blitzkrieg. First of all, in 1918, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, which stated that Germany was only allowed to have an army of 100,000 men, a navy of 15,000 men, and no air force. Between 1918 and 1939, German military strategists developed new strategies to effectively conquer countries in the event of war, since the traditional warfare used in the First World War had only gained small areas and cost many soldiers' lives. In 1933, Adolf Hitler came to power and believed that Germany was being heavily oppressed by the treaties. According to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was not allowed to train or prepare for war. That's why between 1936 and 1939, Germany practiced for war by supporting Spain during the Spanish Civil War and by using disguised cars as tanks. During the following years, Hitler repeatedly broke the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles by rearming heavily, reoccupying the Rhineland, which at the time was not allowed to be occupied, founding an air force, and forming an alliance with Austria again. In the end, Hitler became increasingly greedy. He then demanded that Poland hand over parts of its territory.
Okay, but I think now we are ready to talk about the wars.
On September 1st, 1939, World War II began with the German invasion of Poland. The Wehrmacht used the Blitzkrieg tactic for the first time, with rapid tank attacks, air support and coordinated advances. The Polish army was surprised and overwhelmed. On September 3rd, Britain and France declared war on Germany. On September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east, as agreed in the secret protocol of the Hitler-Stalin Pact. Poland was divided between the two powers, and on September 27th, Warsaw capitulated, and the first Blitzkrieg had ended successfully. On April 9th, 1940, Germany expanded the war to the north. With Operation Weserübung, Denmark and Norway were attacked. Denmark surrendered almost without resistance the same day, while Norway put up a fight but was eventually defeated. Just 1 month later, on May 10, 1940, the attack on Western Europe began. Germany launched a simultaneous offensive against Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, once again using Blitzkrieg tactics. Tank divisions, air raids, and paratroopers were meant to overwhelm the enemy quickly. On May 14, 1940, the German Luftwaffe bombed the Dutch city of Rotterdam. The city center was almost completely destroyed, and over 800 people were killed. This brutal display of military power led to the Netherlands' surrender the following day.
After Britain and France declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939, a period known as the Phone War, in German known as the Blitzkrieg, took place on the Western Front from September 1939 to May 1940. This meant there were no major military actions between Germany and France during this time. On May 10, 1940, a decisive campaign of the Second World War began against France, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The goal was to bypass the Maginot Line by achieving a rapid breakthrough through the Ardennes and the town of Sedan. Here too, the German Wehrmacht employed the tactic of Blitzkrieg with a fast, concentrated advance using tanks, motorized infantry, and massive air support. Between May 13th and 15th, 1940, German forces successfully broke through the French defensive line at Sedan. This marked one of the most crucial phases of the Western campaign. German tank divisions exploited the gap and advanced rapidly westward toward the English Channel. They covered over 300 kilometers within a few days, with the Allies unable to mount an effective defense. A large portion of the British and French forces was deployed further north in Belgium, where they had originally expected the main German attack. When German forces reached the Channel coast at Abbeville on May 20, 1940, the connection between the northern Allied forces and southern France was cut off. The Allies were trapped in a massive pocket known as the Dunkirk Pocket. During Operation Dynamo, more than 330,000 soldiers, mostly British, were evacuated across the sea to England. Despite the German advance, Hitler decided to temporarily halt the tanks, as Göring believed the Luftwaffe could stop the evacuation on its own. This decision allowed many soldiers to escape, though almost all their weapons and equipment were lost. The second German offensive in France, known as the Case Red, in German Fall Rot, began on the June 5th. After gaining control on the north, the Germans now aimed for the heart of France. The French army was exhausted and lacked sufficient reserves. Then, on June 14th, German troops marched into Paris without facing resistance. On June 22, 1940, France surrendered. The armistice was signed in the forest of Compiègne and came into effect on June 25th.
The occupation of Yugoslavia was part of the Balkanfeldzug in the Second World War and began on April 6, 1941, with a large-scale attack by the Wehrmacht, where Germany was supported by Hungarian troops. In the first few days, the capital Belgrade was heavily bombed, leading to massive civilian casualties. Two German armies advanced into the country simultaneously. One of them moved into northern Yugoslavia, led by Generaloberst Maximilian von Weiss. By April 10th, they had pushed forward to Agram, which is now Zagreb, Croatia. There, the Germans were supported by fascist Croatian forces who welcomed the Wehrmacht as liberators, hoping for the independence of Croatia. On April 12th, the first German tank troops reached the capital city of Belgrade. After Croatia declared itself independent, the Yugoslavian army dissolved dramatically and could no longer resist the German Wehrmacht. So Yugoslavia was quickly capitulated, only 11 days after the first attack, on April 17th. Around 344,000 Yugoslavian soldiers were then taken as prisoners of war. Following the occupation, the civilian population also faced brutal repression by the Germans.
Now the invasion of Greece. Germany attacked Greece on April 6, 1941. Italy had already tried to defeat Greece but failed, so Germany wanted to help its ally and stop British troops from getting stronger there. German soldiers quickly moved through Bulgaria into Greece. They broke through Greek defenses and took the city of Thessaloniki after just a few days, by April 27. They had reached and taken Athens. Germany also attacked the island of Crete in May. This was called Operation Mercury. They used many paratroopers, soldiers who jump from planes, and although Germany won the battle, it lost many soldiers and resources. Now the invasion of the Soviet Union. On June 22, 1941, Germany began a huge attack on the Soviet Union. This was called Operation Barbarossa. Over 3 million German soldiers crossed the border. At first, the Blitzkrieg method worked again. German tanks moved fast, planes destroyed many Soviet targets, and thousands of Soviet soldiers were captured. But the Soviet Union was very big, and the German army had to move over long distances. Supplies ran low, the roads were bad, and the weather was cold. By December 1941, they were near Moscow, but the Soviet army fought back very hard. The German troops were not prepared for the winter and the Blitzkrieg plan failed. Puh, das war jetzt ganz schön viel Information. Zeit für ein kurzes Fazit. Wir fassen zusammen. Die Blitzkrieg-Strategie brachte der Wehrmacht zu Beginn des Zweiten Weltkriegs schnelle Erfolge, wie zum Beispiel in Polen, Frankreich und Griechenland. Durch Überraschung, Tempo und koordinierte Angriffe konnten gegnerische Linien rasch durchbrochen werden. Doch in der Sowjetunion stieß diese Taktik an ihre Grenzen. Die enorme Ausdehnung des Landes, der harte Winter und der entschlossene Widerstand der Roten Armee verhinderten einen schnellen Sieg. Stattdessen geriet Deutschland in einen langen Abnutzungskrieg. So wird deutlich, ein schneller Sieg kann teuer erkauft sein. Also ein klassischer Pyrrhussieg, der letztlich mehr schadet als nützt. Wir hoffen, dass das Video euch helfen konnte, den Blitzkrieg und seine Folgen besser zu verstehen. Tschüss!
Tschüss. Danke fürs Zuschauen.
Tschüss!